Dear Shunyaji, would you recommend at this hour to sit and wonder what it would like to be dead, as Ramana did? There is willpower, yes, for this cremation to occur, but the inability to totally relax into it. So is more practice needed as the soul to awaken that is not the ego?
Yes, more practice in a state of adoration of the infinite self and surrender of your own will and your own emotional reactions to life. And all of the narratives that your mind tells you that you have to recognize as not only fictional, but antagonistic to your peace of mind and represent the ego shell that is keeping you from becoming the firebird and living in bliss. So the moment that you decide, I will not live in the suffering any longer that's created by my own mind, and I will do whatever it takes, you may or may not decide to go into rigor mortis. I don't actually recommend that necessarily, but it will be a kumbhaka. It will be a moment when you are so drawn inward that the metabolism of the body will slow down, the heartbeat will slow down, the brain waves will shift into delta and into waves that will produce no thoughts, and there will be a freedom from identification with the body and a release into the infinite expanse of total consciousness. And when you have gone through the ego's momentary terror of letting go, right after the death from which there is no return, the light, the fire of the blissful self completely sets your eternal flame on fire, and it will never again go out.
Thank you again for one of your timely and poignant teachings. I'm really tired of it, the narratives. We've talked about it over and over again, and I died identifying with that old South Bronx.
Okay, right now you're in the narrative itself. You're in the narrative of hating the narrative. Okay? That's what you must not indulge in.
Okay.
Hating the narrative doesn't help. Stopping the narrative is all that helps. That's the only goal, the only path, and the only purpose you can have if you wish to become who you really are. You stop it. And that means use all of your willpower not to indulge in thoughts. You create a dead mind and you keep it dead long enough that all of the sanskaras become so boring that you never want to think them again, because you are feeling the infinite presence that is so overwhelming, you never want to go back to that little illusory character. Start now.
Yeah. It's an old habit that I want to stop.
Don't want to stop. Stop.
And pray to the self. It is merciful.
There's no one to pray to. Be the self.
Thank you, Shunya.
Shantimani asks, soul and ego colliding and annihilating each other. Is this like hate and love colliding?
Not necessarily. It can be. It's ignorance and knowledge colliding. But that ignorant ego is nowadays almost always a self-hating and an other-hating ego. And therefore, it is the negation of that hatred which is the opening to the divine love that is the soul's true essence, that then will put out the fire of hatred and ignite the fire of that blissful, luminous intelligence that is the true essence of love.
Thank you. That was very helpful because I wasn't fully clear what the Firebird was, and that was a very clear explanation. When you said everything, well, it depends on the vibrational frequency. Does the soul realize the infinite?
The soul realizes it is not the finite. It doesn't know the infinite, but it is a manifestation of the infinite. And once it has eliminated the finite, the infinite is what remains. It's not the soul any longer. The soul disappears as well. It finished its function, right? Like the caterpillar dying and the butterfly emerging. The butterfly is not the same any longer. But that realization will permeate the body so that the character will then become a manifestation of the absolute self. It won't be the soul, and it won't be the ego, but it will be that vibrational frequency of presence that is always empty and yet is always the river of life, of love emanating, and of the treasures coming out of the ocean of consciousness that will be transmitted and shared with everyone.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And also, is there an actual relationship between the ego and the soul, or there can't be a relationship because the ego is fictional?
Negation. It's the negation, yeah. Okay. Because it's the knowledge that the ego is not real. Mm-hmm. It's a fictional creation that you made into a story, and that story became structured so that it suppressed many of its own chapters. In other words, many of the aspects of the story of who your ego thinks it is are in the subconscious, and they may only come out in the form of nightmares at night. They may only come out in the form of karma, right? But if you remain in that state of the total awareness of the Buddha nature, all of it gets integrated and annihilated because it's all made up of opposite tendencies. And then both of those polarities dissolve and leave the pure light of presence without qualities. That's para Brahman. That's who you are.
Okay, thank you. That's very beautiful. And one last thing is, if it's all an illusion anyway, it doesn't need to all be known and understood.
Let's put it this way. Instead of saying it's an illusion, it's a work of art. God is the ultimate artist, and this theodrama is the ultimate play, all right? And so, if you are a connoisseur of great art, you will want to know the meaning of all of this, right? But you'll be motivated by your own resonance with the beauty, the genius of the consciousness of God, to the point where you will just melt into that in awe and wonder, and no one is left, because you also are the art of God. You're a manifestation of that divine artwork. You don't exist other than that.
What could be more awesome than that?
Exactly. Now stay in that state of awe, and that's already liberation.
Thank you.
Question from Bob. Is it necessary for us to suffer in order to cleanse karma?
Most people seem to choose that, yes. Is it necessary? No, it's an option, and not suffering is a better option. However, To not suffer requires courage. And the courage is to go through the process of ego death, because only a fictional character can suffer. The real self couldn't suffer even if it tried. And it tries. And that's the joy of it, because what seems like a tragedy to the ego is a comedy to the real self. And the real self, no matter how great an artist that self is, it cannot be captured and mesmerized and lost in that work of art. It's always appreciating it from beyond, like the monks who do those mandalas, right, and then destroy them. Oh no, they're not attached to it. No, it's nothing, right? But the characters in the mandala don't like to get swept away. So you have to enjoy being swept away. And then you get swept into infinity and eternity. And you realize that death was the best thing that ever happened to you. Well, if there's no more questions, we can stop this satsanga early, because, you know, time is an illusion. And what's important is to become a connoisseur of the real and lose interest in the illusory. But to lose interest in the illusory, you have to see that it's a work of art. And because it's a work of art, the only way to appreciate it is not to get in the way of the will of God that is producing the art. Because your ego is not producing it, it's an artifact of it, but it has no free will or power or creative intelligence. All of that comes only from the one self, not from the multiplicity of fictional selves. And so the one self, in a state of surrender, self-surrender, becomes then the playwright, as well as the play, as well as the player, and as well as the audience, enjoying the entirety of the play from a state that is so beyond that there is no identification, but a total enjoyment of the efforts that every soul, every angel, every being is contributing to creating this superorganism of the world that is God's work of art, that we are completing with the good faith of our own self-offering. All right, going once. Going twice. But where are we going? Or have you already gone? What if you were to choose at this very moment really to be gone? To disappear as a character? To live as presence without an ego story? Completely lit up with total consciousness, filled with love, because you recognize everyone as a manifestation of the same self. And all of us are indispensable actors in this play.
Well, just now you were speaking more about this, what I felt was you would describe this kind of point of dissociation and self-hatred, right? Because I have felt that like often, right? And I feel like that's what I witnessed in the story of my family, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much self-hatred, people, you know, you want to wish yourself off the scene, right? Mm-hmm. Like suicide, right? You described as the ultimate disappearing at the wrong level. So you're saying that's where there a collision is, or a collision could be, when there's that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. You can always choose the upper death drive. You can always choose ego death over suicide.
Yeah, of course. I guess it's just...
But it will require surrender. Because you can't get out of the grip of a suicidal ideation once it's very strong. It's like it's pulling you like a vacuum into the abyss. And the only way you can get out is by seeking the help of God.
Right, so it's like being aware of that is just one part of it, and then you either repress it again or it's surrendered.
Once it reaches suicidality, you don't repress it. That's the point. And that is usually when, and how they speak about it in the military is there's no atheists in foxholes, right? If you're being bombed, you will suddenly wish that God would save you, right? So you have to, usually the ego will have to reach such a state of desperation that you will finally say, God, save me, and mean it, and be willing to be saved. So that's why there is often the need for suffering, because you won't let go until that last moment of extreme impossibility of going on living. And you say, oh, God, help. And that's usually when it's too late to get that help, because your mind can't even stay with the prayer. It goes into too much terror and anxiety.
Okay.
That's why it's important to start the practice sooner while there's a moment of safe passage.
Okay, well, thank you.
Any last other questions? All right, we're going to go back. We've got reached twice already. Parasamgate Bodhe Swaha. Thank you all. Namaste.